to order the City Council work session Tuesday, January 17th. Don, would you please call the roll?
Mayor Pro Tem Oates.
Here.
Councilpersons Worrell.
Here.
Ellison. Here. Miller.
Here.
O'Neill.
Here.
First item on the agenda is Dave Schlesinger.
Good evening. Dave Schlesinger with Main Street again. Matt had asked me to throw together some estimates and also do a quick presentation tonight on the sidewalk project and some alternatives they've come up with. He's got some information that should have been handed out to you, and I'll also pull it up here for the audience to look at. This sheet is a summary of the options, and there'll be some displays that follow this that will help to explain those better. Safe Routes to School is a grant program that the DOT has, and what they do is try to promote a safe route, which is a path from one point to another. They look at the entire distance between those 2 points as part of the project, and that area has to comply with their requirements. We had looked at 5 different areas, and I think council is pretty familiar with those, and we'll pull those up here shortly. But the first option here includes all 5 areas. We had thrown together an estimate. You'll see towards the bottom, the total for construction is about $390,580, and that does include engineering easements. The grant funds on that were $250,000. That's the maximum that Safe Routes gets per project. And you'll see below that, Matt has broken that down, if we've done an estimate by certain percentages what that would be. The second option is similar to the first, however, we've taken out the bridge on College Street. Maybe we can take through these maps so they can see some of these different routes. I know a few of the people on council may be new and may not quite be familiar with what we're talking about. So, this is going to be the Greenview route in the upper left, and this connects Greenview Drive, Greenview Circle down into the Peterson Valley area. And you'll see there's a red line up in the corner. That's a 10-foot wide trail in this particular proposal. And you'll also see on Sullivan Street, here, you'll see there's a short gap. And this goes back to the route, and we have to have from point A, which is here, to the school, we have to have continuity with the sidewalks. And we can't have a gap here because we know there's a gap here, a gap here, and a gap here. So if someone came down the trail and they had any difficulty in traversing this area, it doesn't meet ADA requirements. So that's why we had that in this particular option. Go to the next one, Matt. The Poplar Street route, this is right out in front of City Hall here, and we're going from Main Street on the bottom, we come across the parking lot out in front of City Hall, jog out and run along Poplar Street up to the school, and there is a sidewalk up here that we're tying into. And this one has some challenges that we can talk about a little later. So this will be the Poplar Street option in the proposal. Okay, yeah. The middle school option is down here right by the water tower, and that's just a short stretch that connects us from Orange Street to the existing sidewalk that runs up through this area over by the middle school. This would be on Oliphant Street, and this starts down at Orange also, and runs up along the side of the street till we see Crestview Circle here. That's got some sidewalk that's already in place, so we skipped over that, but everywhere else, if you see the red, that would be new sidewalk under there. And the last section that we had looked at was on College Street, and the blue line here is a bridge that would be put in. It's a prefabricated pedestrian bridge. It was estimated, I believe, at 50 feet long. And we had sidewalk running over in front of on 4th Street. There's also a short section to get across back over the sidewalk on the south side of College Street. So those are the routes that are included in the grant proposal. And the bridge that's in here is fairly expensive. We've estimated that just for the bridge at $100,000. This is also in a detailed flood study area, which means if you put any obstruction in that floodway, you have to go through a detailed mapping process. You have to get a no-rise certificate, or you have to remap part of that floodplain with a COMAR. That is a pretty extensive process. Takes quite a few months to get through. Just the order of the information from FEMA and get to the library, I believe it's around $3,000. So that just gets us started, and you have to build a model, do an effective model, which is duplicating what they have in place, do an existing conditions model, which is updating that. You have to do a post-project model, and you have to show if you do any encroachments and what that would result in. So there's a pretty involved process. That's one of the reasons on option 2, you'll see up here, there's nothing in there for the bridge because that is fairly expensive. We wanted to see it without the grant money and we skip the bridge and we just put in some of these routes. Basically look at everything except for the bridge on this one. We could get that down to a construction cost of $154,000. Now after the grant is taken out, you'll see down here that it is slightly more expensive than the option with the bridge and the grant money. So that one, it looks like if we were to do this project, we'd probably be better off going with the grant. We looked at the third option being if we were just to do priority routes, and those are spelled out in your packet. And the priority routes, option 3, include Poplar Street, which is the same as what we had in the Safe Routes to School grant, Orange Street, which is again owned by the water tower, and Oliphant Street. Orange only Cresty in the south of that cul-de-sac and not go all the way out to North Island. So it also included some in-house improvements on the bridge. Basically what they're looking at is over on College, the bridge has some pretty steep approaches. They're fairly narrow. It's a little difficult to walk on. I think there's some ramp next to it in order to get footing. And the city staff could go about improving those ramps. They wouldn't necessarily meet ADA requirements, but it would certainly be better than what we have out there. So if we go back to the cost estimates map, we'll see that for the priority routes that we looked at, and including those sidewalks, again, just minor improvements to the bridge, we're looking at a cost of about $61,000 up here. We're assuming the school is going to pitch in for that.
Can I make a note on that? This was just listed, the school district's made no, decision on this yet. I think they're waiting to see what the council's gonna come back with. This was just listed in as a request from the city council. I've talked to a couple members that you might wanna request that they would cover the cost of concrete on the school to see if we can move one of these options forward. So that's why that number was thrown in on all 3.
So you'll see that on the right-hand column, again, we're less if we go with $48,000 doing the priority options, but we're only doing a few of the sidewalks. We're not doing the bridge over College Street. We're not doing Greenview, and we're also not doing Oliphant. All of Oliphant. We're looking to part of that off from Crestview out to Downey Street. So this is just a way to take a look at it and see if perhaps if we would scale back a little bit, what is the cost to the city? Obviously, looking at this, option number 2, if we did all of those without the bridge and didn't take the grant money, we're still spending more here than we would if we got the grant money, and we don't have that new bridge. The last option, we don't have many sidewalks, but we're spending less out of pocket than we would for the other two options. And again, keep in mind that that's what the estimates we have. If we should happen to come in a certain percentage under, the price drops accordingly. So if anybody has any questions on any of the routes, on the estimates, how we came up with those.
On the SRS grant, is when we applied for the grant and received the grant, things have changed since then, and we own that park ground to the south. We're calling the park now the old trailer court. Is it possible that we can move that bridge to the south side of that crossing if we went with the grant? Is it possible, you think, that we can move that? We can request a change.
Yeah, as long as we're in the same corridor, they really don't have that much concern. What we're trying to do is get that route from point A to point B. And if we go on the south side of College Street rather than the north side, they don't care. Just the same as if we were on that side of Poplar versus this side. As long as we go down Poplar and it's still in conformance with the grant application, they really have no beef with that.
Then my next question was on the field crossing and Greenview. The trail is proposed in the grant as a 10-foot wide concrete trail. Does it have to be a 10-foot wide concrete trail, being there's not gonna be a street there? Can we change that to a seal coat trail so the farmer doesn't have to, run the risk of ruining our concrete in less time than it's gonna take?
I don't know that they would go for seal coat. Asphalt might be a possibility, but seal coat being significantly less structural.
I just can't see
sure.
crossing it with, combines and grain carts and things like that, that's gonna be much left of it after a couple of years. I've busted a lot of concrete in my day, and I don't see that if you poured it even 6 inches thick, that they're able to cross it and last.
Right, and that's something we'd have to consider during the design if we wanted to put a designated area where we would encourage the farmer to cross and make that thicker. We could do that, try to save that trail. There could be some other options, whether we try to put some sort of a plate over the top of that at that time of year. Maybe that's a possibility when he's going to use it. Yeah, so there are options that we can look at,
Yep.
and we just have to put signage up to alert people that they can't use it during that period while he's harvesting.
And I have one more question if I keep going. On these sidewalks that we put in, a lot of them are gonna be on one side of the street. And is there a way that after this is said and done, we're probably not, and especially on Alton Street, we wouldn't require a sidewalk on the other side in the future. Is there a way that we can sign an ordinance that says that both property owners on both sides will be assessed maintenance in the future?
For the one side,
Yeah.
state law says the property owners are responsible for the ones adjacent to their lot. So I would guess you cannot assign the people across the street to partially maintain those. Because that would be inconsistent with the state law.
State's giving me the money, but they rope you into it, making me the one guy be
Yeah.
battened down by it.
You know, if it was considered a trail, Kevin, would we do an assessment to maintain that part of the trail?
Yeah, it would be.
Those people or
If
something.
you call it a trail, then I'm afraid that the city would may have to be maintaining it.
I asked that question to other entities, and that's what came up as a previous
You might
issue.
call it a sidewalk.
And then another question, in the areas designated, like the Greenview part, the farmer's not gonna shovel it, so that'd be back to the city to do that.
If it was a trail, yes.
That's what that's gonna be, isn't it?
Yes.
What about the empty lot down there? We pointed out that vacant lot, we're gonna pave across. That would be city responsibility until that lot's paid for.
No. It would be the lot owner's responsibility to sidewalk in front of their lot, even though it's a vacant lot.
Then that sidewalk will be basically ruined, tore out.
Yes, it will be when they build the house.
I've dug a lot of bases by then,
Yep.
I can't say the
You
sidewalk.
can't save a sidewalk when you build the house, no, I agree.
Okay, that's all I got for right now.
Anybody else?
I had a few questions. I talked with Matt and Matt Goodell about alternative 3 or the priority routes. I didn't know if Matt could talk a little bit about some things that he thought they could do in-house to help with the cost on that. I just,
They're that mad.
either one.
Sure.
Can we bring up the,
Sure.
see that?
Well, I think when we go over this, as we talked about, then we can do some of the grading, where the signage and the pavement marking and the seeding and traffic control, that type of stuff, and then knock off quite a bit off of that price. I don't have that number, so I don't know exactly what it is, but yeah, that, we could probably cover those things. Besides that, I think you want to have the contractor do the rest of it, the that can knock off $4 or $5 grand off the price there, which will get you down quite a bit farther.
Can you talk a little bit about the bridge work too?
The bridge, I think either way, we're gonna end up fixing that, but we're gonna go in on the west side of that pedestrian bridge and tear out that sidewalk, raise the elevation up, and make that not quite as steep a grade. Take that, there's a little ramp at the one end that's 6 feet long, and it's pretty steep, but it's hard to walk on. I cleaned it, it's not easy to walk on, but we're gonna take that out, and we'll pour concrete straight up to the actual walking surface of the bridge, which will make it easier for everybody to use. We'll also take the railings off and put new railings on that are a little safer, and, I mean, either way we do it, we're gonna fix that stuff, so.
With the pedestrian bridge, are you planning on doing that with option 3, or just that's in your department for the budget period?
I'm hoping to do it, yeah,
Just see what.
either way.
So, just to clarify, like you can help grading if we do option 3, you can help with markings and signs and
Yeah.
stuff like that. You can't help with that stuff if we go with option 1? No.
Mark?
Now, either option 1 or option 3, that sidewalk in front of the elevators on College Street.
Yeah.
There's an intake there I was looking at today, that's mighty low. That elevation, that sidewalk's gonna have to come up anyway. We're gonna have to extend that intake. We have no curb and gutter there, so we're gonna have to kind of invent something there. That's gonna be on us no matter what.
Yeah, and in the budget, I added in to redo some intakes, and that would probably be one of them we'd have to do. I would imagine, I don't think we're just gonna be able to extend it, we're probably gonna have to tear it out and just start over.
I looked, I think it's brick, isn't it?
I haven't looked at it.
Paul and I did some work on it 2 years ago, it
Yeah.
fell in and we talked to him.
We can form it up and re-pour it.
And then, just for your information, when I did that cleanout for you this fall, clean ditches, that culvert that starts on the south side of that College Street that runs toward the bridge,
Yeah.
I think maybe we should look at extending that on up and
Yeah. Up to the.
creating a ditch there.
Yeah, it really doesn't do a whole lot.
Yeah, a question, you mentioned that you were gonna propose some improvements to the sidewalk on the south side of the bridge to get up to the bridge.
Yeah.
But I didn't hear what you said you were gonna replace the railings with.
I was just gonna put back wood, but we'd make the slats closer together to, I don't remember exactly what the measurement is, but, so that you don't have problems
Is
with
it
kids.
possible that you could attach a cyclone type fence on the outside of the
I would
bridge to
think
make
so,
it just a little bit more?
Yeah, we can do something like that, I don't see any reason why we couldn't.
Or
I could never remember, Jim, but in the past years, when the creek gets high, that bridge doesn't go under, does it? It's
I've
always
never seen it
above.
under, no.
I don't think it does. I had one more question for Dave Shepherd. Whenever Matt's done.
I'm good.
Okay.
Thank you, Matt.
You mentioned the flood study, and that's, if that bridge went south of, or, yeah, the new pedestrian bridge went south of the existing bridge, if you still have to do that study either way, because are we gonna have to do that study when we go to raise our parkland and improve it?
It depends on if you're in the floodway or if you're in a floodplain. If you're outside of the floodway, which is the designated area on the flood map, you can build in the floodplain if the city, and in certain cases, sometimes DNR has to review it also. But if you meet the requirements that you're outside of the floodway, the city, in certain situations, has the ability to write a floodplain to allow that development to occur. But we need to be sure that the study is accurate and that you're not going to create problems by backing water up and shoving it on somebody else.
The reason I bring this up to you is we're removing, I don't know how many trailer houses there is down there, 9 or 11, I can't remember, 9 I think. That's gonna improve the floodway because we're gonna open that area.
I don't know where the floodplain
Well,
is
the
much
floodway
larger than the flood.
extends almost to Second Street, by looks at the map. The floodplain extends beyond Second Street, but we're actually gonna open the floodway up, so that's gonna give us some credit, isn't it?
That should allow less or should have less restriction, which allows more flow. I don't know what the difference is between the model when it was first done. We've got a lot of trees that have grown up, buildings have been put in. A lot of things have been done that aren't in compliance with the floodplain regulations, just in observation now. I don't know what events took place, but just in looking at it, it seems like there are quite a few things that shouldn't have been allowed there that perhaps were done, not knowing that that was the case.
I was hoping that when we do develop our parkland there, that we would be able to improve the flow line and the capacity of the creek there anyway with opening it up and riprapping the sides and the bottom and making it look like something instead of being a dump hole.
Any other questions? We need a motion to adjourn.
I had some comments I wanted to make, looking out just for kind of everything that we could tackle. I put some reasons. I'm in favor of supporting option 3. I think that will have fewer kind of surprises for us. And if we went with that route, when we committed to spending money, we would know exactly what we were gonna get and what it would cost, rather than, with the grant, we would have to commit close to $41,000 for the engineering, and then we wouldn't know what the cost was until we could get bids. I know option 3 doesn't touch all of the routes, it leaves out Greenview. But I think that it touches on 4 of the 5, and it puts the focus closer to the schools, and that we can do some in-house work that will provide cost savings. And talking with Matt Muckler and Matt Goodale, it looks like we have room in the budget to take care of option 3 this fiscal year as well. And then I put with that the sidewalk repair program that Matt's been working on, of repairing any sidewalks that need maintenance in town, that we probably should have been doing much longer before this, similarly to what other cities do. That would tie in and touch on all existing sidewalks, and that would include the College Street sidewalk that is part of option 1 and 2. Putting in new sidewalk where there's already existing sidewalk there, it just needs maintained.
Hearing that, I just will state where I'm coming from then. Looking at these numbers and weighing the options, I'm gonna support option 1, go with the grant, and go ahead and expend the funds. Because I have a feeling that we're in a hungry construction market, that maybe this is overestimated, we'll be closer, the numbers will be closer. That's my only hope. And I want a bridge because I really want the bridge, and I want it to be on the south side to enhance our park. So that park to me is very important. I want to make sure that that park turns out to be something we can be proud of for a lot of years.
I think, I've been looking at it and doing some thinking, and I kind of agree with Mark. I think the construction market's hungry, and I think that number is gonna be the 15 or 20% lower. And it seems to me that we're gonna get, for a little bit more money, we're gonna get a whole lot more work if we go with option 1. But I do believe that we need to keep working on the ordinance and enforcing people to fix this stuff, fix the ones that are existing and fix the new stuff as it needs it put in, so 20 years from now, we're not sitting here again with a bunch of busted out sidewalks trying to figure out how we're gonna make our community safe again.
I guess I have a question about the park, or the new park that's gonna be coming. Do we know an exact layout for that? So if we're moving the bridge, I mean, we know the exact layout of what's gonna happen there?
Nope, it's up to you and I and the other 3 here to make a decision what we want that to be. And what, I guess I didn't ask to answer her. I'm sorry, she was looking at me actually. That's all right. Anyway, Jordan, I guess that's a blank sheet right now. I was just hoping that, I'm not hoping, I'm knowing that we're cleaning it up now, we're gonna get started on it this year, I don't know if we'll finish this year. I'd sure like to get it graded up and seeded and looking nice and green and all the junk out of there, get our new bridge in and see where it's gonna go, and then we can kind of design around the trailhead and lots of things there, there's a lot of options.
Can I add to that? I think that that bridge could be a real nice centerpiece for that park and creek. I agree with, Mark.
If that ends the discussion, I'll have a motion to adjourn.
Did you see noises?
Thanks, David.
Councilpersons Worrell,
Yes.
O'Neill,
Yes.
Ellison,
Yes.
Miller,
Yes.
Oates.
Yes. Next item on the agenda is communications and open forum. I have three people in the audience. First one is Paula Burrow.
I thought I knew what I was gonna say when I came in tonight, and then just listening to the, work session completely changed my mind. I'm heartened that some folks see the value in the sidewalk, and see that the no bridge option is really no brainer not to go with that option. But what struck me was sitting in the audience, looking at this wall with this group of people, and it says a heritage for success. And what the discussion was basically was how can we make this fail? And I find that contrast just glaring and kind of sad, and heartened that some people are saying how we can make it succeed. And there's always a lot of ways to make something fail, but that's not what we aim for, and hopefully that's not what you're here to accomplish.
Thank you. Nick.
I'm Nick Schuman, Director of the West Branch Public Library. Just want to introduce Amanda Rushton, who is up for approval for the library board tonight. She can't stay throughout the meeting for the time that we get to that approval. So if you have any questions or would like any information from her, I'm sure she'd be happy to provide that.
We've got the information in our packet, so thank you.
There's another Nick out there somewhere. I'm not sure how you pronounce his last name, but
Sobocinski. My name is Nick Sobocinski. I'm probably new to a lot of folks here. I'm the Safe Routes to School Program Director for the Iowa Bicycle Coalition. We're office right down in Coralville. And I work statewide doing education and advocacy for schools that get Safe Routes money or schools that don't. We offer our services free to any school in the state who's willing to have us. We focus on walking safety and bicycling safety. My program operates under one of the same Safe Routes to School grants that you guys have applied for and been accepted for. And I just wanted to talk about the funding situation a little bit. As far as I know it, I don't work for the DOT. We're sort of employed by the DOT to do education and outreach while they handle the building of the streets and things like that. But the Safe Routes to School grants are definitely hard to come by. They've been administered since 2005, so 6 years, and they're under the authority of the Federal Transportation Bill. And recently, that's really up in the air, so the future of these dollars is up in the air as well. The most current bill was extended through March, but it doesn't guarantee any of the money that will be awarded, or was awarded actually, since January 1st for all the 2011 grant recipients. As all of you know, $250,000 is the largest amount that's awarded. It's definitely hard to come by. Sometimes upwards of 80 different projects are applied for. I think in the year you guys applied, there were somewhere in the mid-40s in terms of infrastructure projects that were applied for. And you guys were one of 2 or 3 that would have that maximum amount. And typically there are only that many each year. So they're definitely very coveted. And the folks that were awarded this past year don't even know if that money will come through as far as putting it to use. So they've been awarded by the state DOT, but we're not aware of whether the money is going to come through from the federal government in the new transportation bill that we've been operating under for quite some time now through different just extensions of it. So that money's definitely up in the air. And as an advocacy organization, we've sort of been told to really encourage folks who have this money still on the table to get projects started or start getting those funds obligated as soon as possible, just because the future is really unclear for us. The National Bike Summit is in March, and that's when the current transportation bill expires, so we could see a whole new future. And if the federal government hasn't seen some obligation of those funds, there's the potential, nothing's for certain, that those could be taken back, just as all of this year's grant recipients may not have money in the future, may not have the full amount of that money. So it's my understanding you guys have been awarded, but so now it's sort of sitting in a limbo, and I know Matt has worked with Kathy at the DOT quite a bit on this, but that it may sort of be in a limbo stage where getting things going will definitely be to your benefit in securing those for the future. And then that there are organizations that are out there like ours that'll help bridge the gap and get into K through 8 students and talk to them about how they can best be using these structures that you guys go to build for them, because the goal is to reduce the traffic around the schools. I sort of got a little tour of the town. I grew up in Iowa City. My mother taught here for many years, but it's been a while since I've been back in West Branch, and there are definitely some areas where you see huge improvements. And a lot of the areas that are talked about were within 2 miles, or within a mile or 2 miles, which is really the distance that we try to get kids walking to school. So I was glad to hear the way things went tonight, and just sort of wanted to emphasize the importance of receiving the grant. And if you don't end up accepting it, you definitely won't be the first to turn such a thing down. But that they are rare, and that the future of them may not be out there if you are considering, amending the one that's currently on the table, and trying to resubmit. That may not be an option with our future landscape. So, just that was all I had to sort of add. Be happy to answer questions to my ability.
Thank you for your input. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for hearing me, guys.
May I speak? I didn't sign up. I just have one thing to say. Is that all right? I didn't sign up. I didn't know there was a sign up sheet.
You have one more, one
I
other.
have it. Is it Liz? Paul, Bruce?
Oh, no. I'll go after her.
Is it okay if I speak from here?
Come forward, please.
My name is Liz Silverberg Hernandez, and I live on Cookson Drive. I'm originally from West Branch. I was born here and lived here most of my life. I am here tonight in support of the sidewalks grant, not because it directly affects me very much. Option 3, in terms of the routes that I usually use in Iowa City, would do the job, I suppose, for me, in the way that my family typically walks in town. But I really think that the grant gives us, with the bridge, with the route out to Greenview, with Oliphant Street all the way down to the end, just so much more than what the priority routes option gives us. I think the bridge is terrible, even with adding maybe a new on-ramp and all of that. I agree that it could be a wonderful part of that park. I do like to go out on the trail myself and have to cross that bridge, and in the winter it's pretty impossible, and even in the summer it's not so great. And I did used to walk over that bridge when I was a kid walking to school, and fell many times. I also think that we need to be thinking about the future a little bit. What Nick was saying, the future in West Branch, we have a new kind of trails report of ideas from Parks and Rec about what kinds of trails we want to be adding to our town. This is only step 1. This is, to me, the Safe Routes Grant is the priority list. There are lots of other sidewalks in town that are really important, lots of other trails that we could be working on. And if we can't prove that we can implement this kind of money that we've been given, then nobody's going to give us money again to do whatever else we want to do in the future. I also think that I agree that the construction market is good for this kind of work. I think that the estimates seem a little high. My understanding of the grant is that we can ask for exceptions in terms of the width of the sidewalk, and I assume that on the list that we have, that the difference between, the unit price per sidewalk is based on the width of the sidewalk between the grant 1 and 2 and 3. If those exceptions are given, then those prices could be the same as in the others, and that really brings the price down. Also, the easement, the $8,000 easement, my understanding was for land purchase of the park, which we now own, so that's also $8,000 in the grant that could be put for something else. So I think, I'm glad that there's discussion around this. I'd like to hear at some point from the council members that haven't stated their opinion on the grants as to what they're thinking. And I know that's not going to happen tonight, but I think it's important for people to understand where everyone is on this. And I commend those of you that have kind of stayed where you are. I encourage you to work quickly to implement this grant and get it moving and make West Branch a better place to live.
Mark?
I just got a few things to say. To clarify on, we do have some easement we have to obtain that's not included. If we do go with option 1, through Greenview, through Peterson Valley. There's a lot of things that are vague, but yet they're doable. On December 19th, I was on the prevailing side to turn down resolution number 962, approving amendment. Tonight, I would like to make a motion to reconsider resolution 962, approving amendment incorporated. I'd like to have it put on the agenda for the next meeting. If you'd do that for me, please, Matt. I would need a second for that, wouldn't I?
No, you could just ask it.
Okay.
Ask it to be on
That's what I'm asking for.
You're on the prevailing side.
I've got a letter in the paper tomorrow stating what's been going on the last 3 weeks. I would encourage you all to read that because I don't want to spout it out here tonight. It's 700 words, and I'd just as soon see you read it in the paper. But thank you all.
I'll be really brief. My name is Kelly Schlitz, and I live all the way at the end of Alston, and I have 2 little twins.
Lauren?
Yeah.
Okay.
And there's 6 other kids, very young, who would benefit greatly from the sidewalk between my house and Crestview. So. And there are other young families who would move in.
If I could make one more comment real quick for me. One thing I never mentioned tonight, I meant to and I forgot to. If this sidewalk would extend to the far northeast end of Oliphant Street, I really do feel that in the future there's going to be some development take place on either side of Baker Avenue, whether it be the Jensen Farm or it be the school teacher there from Keystone. I can't ever remember his name. So I don't remember his name. Sale. Anyway, that property across from Oliphant Street. So this sidewalk eventually. Because I guarantee you, all new subdivisions will have sidewalks. So if we didn't put this sidewalk in there and don't, then we'll have sidewalks to nowhere in another spot in town. So I think it makes more sense. You've got to look at the whole thing as a whole. And yeah, it's going to inconvenience some people, but in the long run, it's going to convenience a lot of people too. I'm done.
That concludes the open forum session of this meeting. Item 6. Public head, department heads, commissions, city administrator, and city council.